Yeah. Hair flip, yeah, I'm a badass bitch. I don't like it. Hair flip, yeah. Oh my god. So you guys should be happy. Oh my goodness. Hair flip. But anyways, hair flip. And hair flipping on the toes. Hi.
Hello everyone and welcome back to your boy SeanDavieWay. Make sure you hit that like on the way in, subscribe, hit that bell if you would like to be notified of all of our future content. Today we will be talking about the infamous, the famous Lou Pearlman. There's a lot of things behind this man. He was a huge mogul and entrepreneur when it came to the 90s, especially with boy bands and other acts. He became a millionaire very quickly with these acts, and a lot of things went down while he was in control of a lot of these boy bands. NSync, Backstreet Boys, LFO, Britney Spears, and more. So we're going to dive into all of the horrible, horrendous things that happened to these people, and it may explain why Britney Spears, band members from Backstreet Boys, and NSync were going through the things that they're going through in their adulthood because of what happened to them when they were teenagers. So we're going to dive into that, into the Ponzi schemes of it all, and also a lot of the alleged abuse that went down with these group members. So without holding you any further, let's survive Lou Pearlman. Louis J. Pearlman was born and raised in New York City, New York, the only child of Jewish parents Hy Pearlman, who ran a dry cleaning business, and Renee Pearlman, a school lunchroom aide. He was the first cousin of the musician Art Garfunkel. Pearlman's home at Mitchell Gardens Apartments was located across from Flushing Airport, where he and his childhood friend Alan Gross would watch blimps take off and land. According to his autobiography, Bands, Brands, and Billions, it was during this time period he used his position on the school newspaper to earn credentials to get his first ride in a blimp. This is disputed by Gross, who claims he was the school reporter and allowed Pearlman to tag along. Garfunkel's fame and wealth helped inspire Pearlman's own interest in the music business. As a teenager, he managed a band, but when success in music proved inclusive, he turned his attention to aviation. During his first year as a student at Queens College, Pearlman wrote a business plan for a class project based on the idea of a helicopter taxi service in New York City. By the late 1970s, he launched the business based on his own business plan, starting with one helicopter. He persuaded German businessman Theodore to train him on blimps and subsequently spent some time at the facilities in West Germany learning about airships. Pearlman became fascinated with the success of New Kids on the Block, who had hundreds of millions of dollars in record, tour, and merchandise sales. He started Transcontinental Records with the intent of mimicking their boy band business model. The record label's first band, the Backstreet Boys, consisted of 5 unknown performers selected by Pearlman in a $3 million talent search. Management duties were assigned to former New Kids on the Block manager Johnny Wright and his wife Donna. The Backstreet Boys became the best-selling boy band of all time, with the record sales of 130 million hitting gold, platinum, and diamond status in 45 countries. Pearlman and Wrights were then introduced to NSync, which was formed by Chris Kirkpatrick. Pearlman and Wrights funded and managed NSync in a similar fashion, selling over 70 million records globally. With these two major successes under his belt, Pearlman had become a music mogul. Other boy bands managed by Pearlman were O-Town, created during the ABC MTV reality television series Making the Band, LFO, Take 5, Natural, Marshall Dillon, co-created with music artist Kenny Rogers, in US5, as well as girl groups Solid Harmony and Innocence, with Britney Spears in the very beginning as a short-term member. Co-managed with Lynn Harless, the mother of NSYNC's boy band, Justin Timberlake. Other artists on the transcontinental label included Aaron Carter, Jordan Knight, Smiles and South Star, and C-Note. Pearlman also owned a large entertainment complex in Orlando, including a record studio he called Transcontinental Studios and a dance studio near Disney World named O-Town. In 2002, Pearlman and Wes Smith co-wrote Bands, Brands, and Billions, My Top 10 Rules for Making Any Business Go Platinum. Let's break down what we've learned thus far about Lou Pearlman. As a child, he lived across the street from an airport, and there were blimps that would come in and land, and that is where his fascination with airships and aircrafts came in. He invested in a business when he became an adult of a taxi service of helicopters that would transport people around the bigger cities like New York and other places. He found someone to invest in his company, and he started off with one helicopter. He went overseas and learned more about airships, and when he got back, there was New Kids on the Block. And they were really big in America, especially at the time, and Lou Pearlman was infatuated with them. So he wanted to do the same thing. He wanted to do the whole boy band situation because he tried to manage a band before, it didn't work out, and he kept going and pushed into this aircraft taxi service type of business. But that wasn't going well. He also had some hiccups with that, even lawsuits. So he decided to shift his energy and shift his business talent into bands. So when that happens, all of a sudden, Backstreet Boys, they blow. And then other groups started to blow up as well. In my opinion, no disrespect to Lou Pearlman, rest in peace, but he was unattractive. He wasn't someone that people looked at as a beautiful person. And he also let his body go. He did not have a nice body. He was overweight the majority of his life. And those are not qualities that fit the boy band mold. So to me, he was always jealous and envious of these boy band mates, especially because he always wanted to be a part of it. He knew that he did not have the look with most boy bands or girl bands. They're usually beautiful people with beautiful bodies. And Lou did not fit that mold. So instead of being on stage, he had to settle and be behind the stage. So there's a lot of jealousy when you're watching somebody live your dream. There can be a lot of static, that comes in between, especially when you don't feel that they deserve what they have and they only have what they have because of you. Even more reason for you to feel entitled. But there's a very dark history that Hollywood loves to leave out about Lou Pearlman. There were a lot of allegations against him from boy band mates and girl band mates, even Britney Spears, NSYNC, and the Backstreet Boys, LFO, about Lou Pearlman being very inappropriate with them as children, to the point to where he was looked at as a predator in the industry. So we're definitely going to break down that dark history that he has had with these bands and solo acts. In 2018, the Backstreet Boys celebrated their 25th year in the music industry. You'd be forgiven for thinking the band has since long disbanded and been absorbed into the collective memories of the 90s tweens, long since grown up. But you would also be wrong. The band is still touring and still releasing music, and their fan base is still active and rabid. Next year, they will embark on another world tour. But the band is without a difficult history. Their founding manager is one of the greatest scammers in the American history, who many alleged was a child predator. And the band members have struggled with fame and addiction throughout their 25-year career as the biggest selling boy band of all time. Lou Pearlman was, by 1997, the 150th kg boy band heavyweight of the world. He was behind the Backstreet Boys, the best-selling boy band of all time, NSync, Take 5, Aaron Carter's solo career, Innocence, which initially included Britney Spears, and a slew of others. He was considered a talent scouting renegade and a career-changing pop pioneer with a Midas touch. But despite his run sheet, his career was riddled with scandal that his superstar bands were quick to unearth. The first band to sue him were the Backstreet Boys, who were confused by the fact they only received around $12,000 each per year. This was despite relentless touring and their 1997 self-titled album selling over 28 million copies worldwide. The band engaged a lawyer in 1997, and NSync, also frustrated by their financial situation, were quick to follow suit. Pearlman's fall from grace in the music business was profound. Every single artist and group Pearlman managed has taken him to court for mismanaging their careers and finances, racketeering, and criminal activity. All were successful in winning their cases or settling out of court. Pearlman was sentenced in 2008 to 25 years in prison for running one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history, one which saw him con out many of their retirement savings. His takings from his wheelings and dealings were around $300 million and saw him soliciting money from individuals promising to invest in two companies that did not exist. His victims include his close friends and family and people in their 70s and 80s. Pearlman has been accused of inappropriate behavior with his young talent. Following his downfall, many members of his bands came forward to allege inappropriate behavior while they were young teens, including naked wrestling on the beds at age 13, Pearlman's full frontal nudity in front of kids and showing them porn. An original member of the Backstreet Boys, Phoenix Stone, told Vanity Fair in 2017 that the blimp executive's interest in sinking millions of dollars into boy bands was not innocent. His quote, "Basically, this was an excuse for Lou to hang around 5 good-looking boys. He was along for the ride. What he liked to do was take boys out to dinner." AJ Milleen's mother, who is in the Backstreet Boys, questioned the intentions of Pearlman. Her quote, "As a mother, you kind of put 2 and 2 together," she told Vanity Fair last year. "Is this all innocent or is it more? I kind of thought that there might have been some strange things going on." Jane Carter, Nick's mother of the Backstreet Boys, has been repeatedly questioned over an incident when Carter stayed the night at Pearlman's house, emerging the next day upset and no longer wanting to be left alone with the boy band. When pressed by a reporter following other allegations of Pearlman's misconduct, Jane Carter says she had been hushed. "I tried to expose him for what he has been doing years ago. I hope you expose him because the financial scandal is the least of his injustices. I can't say anything more. These children are fearful and they want to go on with their careers." Let's take a quick sidestep to break down the dark history that Lou Pearlman has had with these bandmates. Article written by Ezell Harris Jr. Taking off my gloves and telling it like it is. I would absolutely say the guy was preying on teens. All the talent knew what Lou's game was. Steve Mooney, an aspiring singer who was Pearlman's assistant, told Vanity Fair's Brian Burrow. "Some guys joked about it. I remember one singer asking me, 'Have you let Lou fillet you yet?'" Phoenix Stone, an early member of Backstreet Boys, tells Vanity Fair Pearlman was definitely inappropriate with Nick Carter. Nick's mom, Jane Carter, wouldn't get into specifics but said, "Certain things happened and it almost destroyed our family. I tried to warn everyone. I tried to warn all the mothers. I tried to expose him for what he was years ago." We're going to take a quick sidestep and get into Nick Carter. So allegedly there was a time when Nick Carter was a teenager in the group The Backstreet Boys, and he went over and hung out at Lou Pearlman's house and spent the night. After he came home the next day, he was very upset. He was very angry, and he didn't necessarily get into specifics in what happened to him. So he just walked around very upset and bottled it up and told his mom that he was never going over there again, that he never wanted to be left with Lou again, to the point to where at first Nick was blaming it on the other band members and trying to make it seem as if he had an issue with one of them. But Nick's mom knew, Jane knew, that he got along fairly well with the guys. So she felt that it was Lou because she had felt a dark energy from him. And she wanted answers. So she went to Lou, and when she confronted him about it, Lou basically brushed it off. So Nick finally gave his mom some details about what happened. When Jane, his mother, wanted to do something about it. She wanted to get Lou arrested, but when you're in a career and it's going really well and whatnot, there are certain things that you will allow so that it does not ruin your career. So with him going down, everything is over. This is all anybody's going to be talking about. I'm sure Nick would have been embarrassed by it. He was already highly upset. Most heterosexual men that are SA'd by someone, it's harder for them to discuss it and get down to the nitty gritty of what happened because they're fighting it so hard. So that's what he was doing. It got to the point to where it was very disruptive with his whole family because they were all on different sides. Nick's mother wanted Lou to go to jail, and on Nick's side, he didn't want that to happen. So the rest of the family were kind of teeter-tottering back and forth, and Aaron Carter, which was Nick's younger brother, was around Lou as well. So now Jane is stuck. You know, what do I do? Both of my sons are around this man. He's doing certain things to him. What do I do? So she confronted Lou, and when she did, Lou basically silenced her. He had her silenced to where she could not speak much about it. And with her being silenced, I believe that she was paid, for her silence. And I think she regretted it. And I think that's also why she would warn the other mothers and tell the other mothers what was allegedly going on. Like, don't let your sons be alone with this person. Don't let them spend the night, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. So that made her in breach of contract to the point to where Lou allegedly had her removed. But who was there to protect Nick once Jane was removed? Multiple sources, even Phoenix Stone, who was an early member of the group, stated that Lou Pearlman was very inappropriate with Nick Carter. He did certain things to him. There was weird massages. There was weird requests that he had Nick do that always had to do with either Nick's body or Lou's body. Everyone saw it. And then Phoenix Stone himself went through certain things with Lou Pearlman. Nick and Aaron Carter have a very distant relationship with their parents. Now, I don't know in 2022 if they've worked things out and their relationship is better, but back in the day, they had a reality show called House of Carter, and they did not have their parents really involved much. There were some phone conversations, and I believe that their mother was on 1 or 2 episodes, but other than that, and there was multiple seasons of this show, but other than that, there was really no dealings with their parents, and it's because of the mismanagement of funds that their mother and father did to them. So not only was Lou robbing them, allegedly their parents were doing the same thing. But Nick Cannon and Aaron Carter have had a very wild relationship with Hollywood, and there's a lot of anger and depression that has come with it. Both of them fell victim to addictions with different substances. And I believe it comes from their childhood, what happened to them as they were coming up. If you don't deal with unresolved issues, you push it in other parts of your life. When you're angry with something, that anger is going to come out. Does it mean that it's deserved? Usually it isn't, but we usually hurt the people we care about most. So, and hurt people. The sad thing about Nick Carter and Aaron Carter by their mother and father is that they were not protected. I don't understand why these parents got involved once the money was wrong, and that's when they want to get lawyers and remove their children from Lou Pearlman. But when allegations are being brought to you that he is doing certain things to them, why not act immediately? That is the time to protect them, not protect their finances because it benefits you. Protect them physically, mentally, and emotionally because that benefits you. Your kids having the morals and values that you instilled in them. Them being hurt by Lou and how he hurt them is not healing them back to health as if they had a head cold or if they had the chicken pox or something. This is a different type of hurt. This is a different type of pain. This is a different type of sickness. And we are not mental health doctors. So we cannot nurse them back to where they were before. It's our job to protect them so that they don't have to worry about that at all. So all of the parents with all of these groups and all of these solo artists dropped the ball. As soon as you heard anything of the sort, that your child may be going through something and there's inappropriate behavior that is happening to them, especially by an adult, you remove them. You don't wait until the money isn't right. Now it's time for you to go when all the damage is already being done. Most of these actors and singers and whatnot, they don't become addicts and fall victim to substance abuse and things in that nature because the money isn't right. Don't get me wrong, it's an option, but it's a higher chance of that happening by them being mentally, emotionally, and physically harmed. So all of the parents dropped the ball, if you ask me. All of you are horrible people. All of you should have done more and have said less. That was the problem. It was too much talking and not enough action. But let's jump into other bandmates, including O-Town, that had certain things happen that was inappropriate by Lou Pearlman. Lou Pearlman requested SCX from making the band O-Town hopeful. Since producing and starring in the first network reality show, Making the Band, Lou Pearlman has fallen hard. The manager of NSync and the Backstreet Boys is currently in jail after having been on the run for close to a year and stands accused of defrauding investors. Now, a Vanity Fair profile says that Pearlman craved the attentions of young, attractive male singers. Some, especially the teenagers, shrugged and giggled when he showed them porn movies or jumped naked onto their beds in the morning to wrestle and play. Those band members included at least one person who wanted to become a part of O-Town, the group created on the first season of Making the Band, that has since broken up, and perhaps some of its members, most of the boy band members, aren't identified by name. Steve Mooney, who Pearlman recruited as a 20-year-old to work as his assistant, says Pearlman later requested sexual favors in exchange for a spot in O-Town. After being hired, Pearlman soon invited him to live in his home. All the time, Pearlman held out the chance that Mooney could join one of the groups he was planning called O-Town. According to Mooney, Pearlman told him, "By this time next year, you'll be a millionaire," the magazine reports. The magazine reports that during the final stages of the O-Town selection process, Pearlman was resisting his entries into the group. According to Phoenix Stone, who consulted on the selection process, he and Pearlman were at his home late one night discussing Mooney's future when Pearlman telephoned Mooney explaining he needed someone to take out the garbage. When he arrived, Mooney asked Pearlman, "What do I have to do to get in this band? I'll never forget this as long as I live." He leaned back in his chair in his white cherry cloth robe and white underwear and spread his legs, and then said, and these were his exact words, "You're a smart boy, figure it out." Then he left. Mooney also says there was one guy in every band, one sacrifice, one guy in every band who takes it for Lou. That's just the way it was. And Pearlman's publicist, Jane Moreau, says, "You'd see Lou kind of moving in on one of them and you would just tell someone, get that kid away from Lou before it's too late." So let's break this down. Before I get into what Phoenix had to say with this proposition that Lou had given him, he knew what was going on. And when I say he knew what was going on, I am talking about Phoenix. Phoenix knew what Lou Pearlman was doing with these boys. And on top of that, even Jay Morose, the publicist, she knew what was going on too. So everyone around these people know what's going on. They're just fearful of saying something. It's no different than the R. Kelly situation. It's no different than the Chris Stokes situation. There are plenty of people that know what's going on, but they choose to do nothing because it does not feed their purpose. Like I said, every adult in this situation is a horrible person. So Phoenix Stone may try to look like a hero by displaying this information, but you absolutely aren't. You allowed Lou to do these things to these people. Just because you feel like you have no power does not mean that you do not have any power. I think it is utterly disgusting that these people would sit around and watch these teen boys go through what they were going through. So it's basically letting you know that Lou Pearlman chose a guy from each band. Each band, one sacrifice, and they do it for the team type of situation. So in the Backstreet Boys, allegedly it was Nick Carter. In NSync, it was allegedly Justin Timberlake. In O-Town, let's not even get into that until part 2, but every band had someone that took it for the team type of situation, no different than B2K. Raz B was allegedly the one that took it for the team, to where the manager found the weakest target, or to them being the most vulnerable target, to them that's a sign of weakness, and preying on that individual. Let's break down Phoenix's story about Lou Pearlman. So at the time, Phoenix was 20 years old and he was an aspiring artist. He wanted to either be solo or in one of Lou's bands. It was the whole reason he was around in the first place. Now, Lou hired him as his assistant. Now remember, he had no experience in being an assistant or what to do, especially with a music mogul. He had no idea. So of course, Lou had to teach him the ropes. Now, Lou included him in the final selection process of O-Town. So if Lou is including Phoenix in the process of picking the bandmates, then that means that he was not an option. You guys get that? So if you're helping me pick, it's like when Diddy did Making the Band, obviously Lorianne Gibson, the choreographer, was not there to be in the group Danity Kane. She was there to help the selection process. So that means that she was never an option to be in said band. It's the same thing with Phoenix. Clearly, Lou had no intention of putting you in this band. That's why when he came over there that night, when Lou requested Phoenix come over, he had something else on his mind, which was figuring out how he can get in this group, O-Town, because again, he's an aspiring artist. With that being said, he asked Lou, hey, what do I got to do to get in this band? And he is already knowing what is going on with the other members of the other bands, Backstreet Boys, NSync. He already knows that Lou is taking advantage of these teen boys. So with that being said, Lou allegedly opened his legs with an open robe and his white underwear showing, telling Phoenix that you're a smart boy, figure it out how to get in the band. Phoenix states that he left. Now, I believe Phoenix is a liar, in my opinion. I'm not saying this is proof, just in my opinion, allegedly, I feel as if Phoenix stayed, and I think that Phoenix fell for the advance. I think that he did exactly what Lou was winking at him to do. And the reason why I say that is because he says that he left. If he left, then that would have meant that Lou knew that he was leaving with information that could incriminate Lou. Meaning he could get Lou arrested or file harassment complaints or sue him for his advances. So with that being said, I believe once again that Phoenix definitely did it. Lou had the biggest Ponzi scheme in America, which is lying. That is what it is. It is telling people, you do this for me and your return profit is going to be this. It's the same thing with Phoenix. I believe Phoenix did fall for the sexual advance and did do it, and Lou duped him by not letting him get into the band, because Lou never had any intention of putting Phoenix inside of that band. I believe that that enraged Phoenix. I believe that that is why he became so upset with Lou, and that's why he started exposing him, for the simple fact of he did things which he probably found disgusting and repulsive for Lou with no benefit. You know, I did all of this for nothing. All of this was in vain. And that's what Lou did in the Ponzi scheme. Everybody that was investing all of this money into Lou, they did it for no reason, because there was no return profit. So he duped them, just like I believe he duped Phoenix. So Phoenix, I believe, in my opinion, that you fell for the sexual advance. And on top of that, you were mortified by what you had to do and even more so by you did it all in vain. Nothing became of it, and you were getting older. So that was another thing to why you were willing to speed up the process to get you in this band. You knew you were not going to be in it. You wanted to be, and you thought with you and Lou being close that this would have been your opportunity to do so. You already knew that other bandmates in Backstreet Boys and NSync were doing certain things to get further, and I believe you tried to do the same thing too. You were desperate, and in that time you were taken advantage of, and that made you upset. With the other guys in the bands, they were younger, they were teenagers. Phoenix was an adult. He was 20 years old. So you can't necessarily say that you were SA'd by him as a minor. You were SA'd by him as an adult, but were you really SA'd if you voluntarily did it? And again, at the time, Phoenix was 20 years old. Phoenix knows that Lou Pearlman likes teenagers. He likes them younger. So with him being 20, in Lou's eyes, he's old. Like he's basically like 50 years old in, you know, model years or boy band years. So to him, you're older. You're not what I'm looking for. You're not what I want. He already knew that Lou liked him fresh, 18 and under, 19 and under, you know, type of situation. So he was right over the threshold into where Lou was not really looking at him with any attraction. He could have really cared less about him. It was just more so of like keeping eye candy around for him. So he really had no interest in doing anything with Phoenix, and that's another thing to why I say Phoenix was desperate. Phoenix was just like, well, I gotta do something now because he's showing the other younger guys 10 times more attention than he is showing me. So now it's time to up the ante. It's time to do what I need to do so that I can hurry up and get my foot in the door because it feels like it is closing. So I hope you guys enjoyed part 1. I love you all. We will definitely be back with part 2. We're going to get into Britney Spears. We're going to get into NSYNC and what happened with them. And we're also going to dive more into the Backstreet Boys, LFO, and more. Lou has a very, very dark history with these groups and the boy bands especially. So we will be breaking a lot of things down and getting into the nitty-gritty of surviving Lou Pearlman and his dark history with boy bands. So once again, thank you so much for watching. I love you all. And until the next video, bye.